Wonderful. Wow. Hi, everybody. Can we give Duncan a round of applause? So Denise is often up here, and unfortunately she's sick, so we're going to hold her in good health today. And he rose to the occasion and noticed that he's also, there's nobody to point to when he's up here saying, hey, can you catch up with me? So well done. Well done. Good job. Thank you for stepping up, Duncan. So my goodness, we've, since we were here last, we've suddenly launched into, I think, turbo speed. Many of you know we own a video production business. We work with nonprofits. We landed 2 very large contracts. And in the space of a 6-week time frame, we're tasked with producing 18 videos, which normally 6 videos in 6 weeks is a lot. Then I've been asked to speak with the USF Women in Leadership and Philanthropy. We did board trainings, and all of a sudden I'm like, ooh. And thankfully, I married a very gracious wife who says to me, you need to meditate. And I said, really? But no, I've got all this to do. I've got to keep going. Oh my gosh, I have 12 hours that I have to get done in 5 hours today, right? Anybody feel that way sometimes? And I don't know why. I thought, I'll meditate in the shower. I don't have time right now. And then I'll meditate on the way to work, or as I'm driving. And what ends up happening is, of course, I'm in the shower, and I'm thinking, and that was the waterfall coming down. It was beautiful. And I'm thinking, I need to get this done and this before I go. Make sure I grab this file. I got to print that. And then when I get in the car, of course, I'm not taking the time to enjoy the dolphins that might be in the bay. I'm thinking, I've got to get to this building. Where do I park? So I'll meditate tomorrow. And then tomorrow I say, no, I've got to get this. I'll meditate the next day. And all of a sudden a week has gone by, and I'm missing out on the one thing that I know can really balance me and center me. So I like to, and I've told you this before, I like to turn to my masters, and my masters are people who have penned or spoken things of great import to me that really resonate with me. And one of them is Thich Nhat Hanh. He's a Buddhist monk. He practices mindfulness every moment. Now, he's not had an easy life. And if you've read any of his books, you can see the process that he's reached over decades of this practice. But I turned to him, and I've read this before, but 3 things stuck out to me that struck me as really poignant with this passage. Mindfulness is the energy of being aware and awake to the present moment. It is the continuous practice of touching life deeply. To be mindful is to be truly alive, present, and at one with those around you and with what you are doing. Now, I've heard before and meditated on mindfulness being aware and awake. We've heard that. But I think what hit me was the energy of being aware and awake. And I'll tell you why that was so important to me in a moment. And then when he continues to say, it's the practice of touching life deeply. And further, to be truly alive, present, and at one with those around you and with what you're doing. To be at one with those around you and what you are doing. I had to ask myself, so why is it then that I put off meditating? Why do I put off my quiet time? Why do I put off the practice of centering myself and connecting to Source? And I really had to do a little bit of personal analyzation, because this isn't something that just happened. It kind of happens on a regular basis, and it's usually when I'm really busy, I've got a lot of things I need to do, I'm in a conflicted situation, or I'm in a conflict in a relationship, and I'm always searching for something I'm trying to fix. I reach to the outside to get it fixed, but why do I do that? It's because I'm looking for something internally that my outer actions are trying to give to me. I'm seeking outside for fulfillment inside. And what is it? And I realized that the first thing is that when I'm doing, and I'm, being productive, and I'm consumed with all my task list, I feel like I have a finite amount of energy. Anybody feel that way? Like, thank you. I have this much energy, and if I have to add one more thing to it, I'm not going to be able to accomplish everything that I want to do. So I don't have time to meditate because I've got all this other stuff that I've got to do. So I have a self-imposed limit on the amount of energy that I have in the day, right? So I really want positive mental activity and positive energy. I want that flow to keep going. The second thing is, as I'm doing it, I like checking things off. I really do. I like my list, and at the end of the day, I'm like, oh, yes, snap me, you. Do you feel that way? It's like they say in sales, if you have something that's a big task to do, swallow that frog first, because then you get over the hump, and what? You feel good. So there's a positive emotion that I'm looking for as I do it too, looking to fulfill something within me. And then the third aspect of that is that when I feel good, I've been known to come home and do my happy dance. Look at all that I did. Yeah, I feel good. Let's go for a run. Whoa. I feel more vital. I feel more energetic. I have better health because of what I've been able to accomplish. So isn't this fascinating? I'm sitting here looking at these three things and realizing that I'm reaching out here to fulfill something inside. I've told you before, I'm in the process of working toward my Master's of Science in Human Nutrition and Functional Medicine, because I love seeing how the metaphysical and the physical intertwine. And we're at an era now where doctors and researchers are doing those studies to show us the science behind our spirituality, which is so cool to me. So of course, being that analytical mind and wanting to see things out here to prove it to myself internally, I went to PubMed, which is the source of all of the studies that have been done, and I found three that I just want to share with you briefly. The first one I found reminded me of the energy aspect of being aware and awake. It was done in 2003. It was a randomized controlled trial. Now that's supposed to be the creme de la creme, because people are, you've got this batch of people, and a computer just randomly assigns them to be either in the control group, which means they don't do anything, or to be in the experimental group, which means they do something to see if anything happens. So they took these two groups of people, they randomly separated them, and then the researchers were blinded to, who was it? So it was a single blind study. Some of them meditated, some of them didn't. This half meditated for 8 weeks, this half did not meditate for 8 weeks. And at the end of that 8 weeks, they were all given a flu vaccine. Now, the flu vaccine, as we know, is meant to help boost our immune system. And we think, well, how is that possible? And there's some controversy about that. But what we know so far about our immune system is that the first time your body handles what's called an antigen, this foreign thing that comes in, it recognizes it and it takes a little bit of time to boost it up and to say, you don't belong in here. And that's why some elderly who might get sick, or people who have compromised immune systems, if they receive something and their system's not ready to fight it, they can get very sick, they can die. That's why we have these vaccines. So the intention of this study was, let's give everybody a flu vaccine and let's see what their bodies do. How do they handle it? Does meditating have any kind of an impact on how quickly our bodies can arise to the challenge? Do you know what they found? To every person, every one of them that was in the meditating group had a higher amount of antibodies in their system and a higher amount of brain activity to boost those antibodies. See, our brains are one of the organs that says to the network of antibodies, go forth, protect. That's very cool. That means that because of meditating, and I think of it as kind of like solar energy, the solar panels soak up the sun and store it in a big solar battery. It's kind of like when meditating, we're opening up to source. We're pulling all that energy in. And then when we need it, if the lights go off or if something comes in, our system kicks in. Our minds quicken. We have more energy. Well, that answered my first thing. Well, I don't have enough energy. I got a limited amount of energy. Oh. And what that told me was, I really should be meditating first, building up my battery supply of energy, and then going out there and doing. Because I'd get more done. I'd probably do it at a quicker pace and a clearer intention, being that connected to source. The second aspect of that, touching life deeply, there was a study done in 2008 that wanted to compare meditation versus simply resting states. Because there are quite a few people, and you might know some in your circles, who say, oh, meditating, schmeditating. You can go to sleep, you feel just fine. You need sleep, that's what you need. Meditating, oh, that doesn't do anything. So they wanted to see, actually does it? And what they did was they hooked up a group of people, beginning meditators and experienced meditators, to what's called a functional MRI, the magnetic resonance imaging, which measures, again, brain activity. It shows brain activity. Specifically, they were looking in the amygdala and in the two right brain sections. Now, that's actually the area and the little organ, the amygdala, that's responsible for our feelings, our positive emotion, our gratitude, our thankfulness. If you feel really good, you can say, thank you, amygdala. That's what it is. So when they hooked these folks up, they saw a range, depending from the beginning to the expert meditators or the experienced meditators. They showed an ever-increasing amount of activity in there, which corresponded with the ever-increasing amount of good feelings, good emotions. Well, there goes my excuse number 2. I feel really good when I check lists. But I could also start by meditating, feel really good, and go do it and feel even better. The third aspect, being truly alive, present, and at one with those around you. There was a 2003 study that was funded by the National Institute of Health. Now, I chose this one, although there have been similar studies, and they were actually working with individuals who had binge eating disorders and who had obesity issues, and they were all tied up together in how they perceived themselves. And this study particularly looked at 2 things. Did it have any physiological impact on the eating disorder or on the obesity? And then the second part was, how did it impact how they viewed themselves? And the interesting thing again is that those who meditated had a better body image after the meditation segment, and they had a better capacity, their bodies physiologically, were handling the obesity and the eating disorder. The same studies have been done that have shown improvement from folks who meditate if they have cancer and how they can handle that, and their body's response, again, those antibodies, things working together. Cardiovascular disease, hypertension, diabetes. A numbers of studies now showing that when we connect to source and we fill that battery up, we're giving ourselves really the power of life. So I have to think, if I can see this scientifically, evidence-based studies showing evidence of the power of meditation, what's my hang-up? Why do I keep putting it off? Why do I not start? John and I were talking in between services, and he said, I've heard that phrase, and I'm sure you have too, and I want to remind you of it today, where it says, you should meditate for 30 minutes in the morning. Oh, but I don't have time. Well, then you should meditate for an hour. I love that. And I realized that even further than those things I'm looking for out there, there are a few obstacles inside of me that I need to really honestly look at and evaluate. And I broke it down into 3 because this 3 thing was working for me for this talk. 1, I have to intentionally choose to surrender, to let go of what I think is my responsibility to how I make my life, to how I live my day. I have to choose to surrender. That's not as easy as it sounds. Sure, take a step away, but I have so much to do. Sure, take a step away, but I'm having problems with this person. Sure, take a step away, but this issue needs my attention. People are relying on me. They're looking to me for the solution. Surrender. Let it go. And that led me to my second aha of the internal aspect of why I don't surrender. I have to trust. I have to trust in a universe that has my back. There's a saying, I love Mike Dooley and Notes from the Universe and that whole aspect. Many of you are familiar with them. The universe loves you and wants the best for you. The year before she passed away, my mother sent me an email. We'd been going back and forth with just little things, and then she said, "Love your mother, who loves you as much as the universe." I went, oh, because she knew how much that meant to me. But if I can think of that, if I know that's true, then let me surrender. Let me let go. Let God. Be still and know. Trust. Trust that God has every good intention for me. Whew. Well, that takes courage. That takes courage because it's also a little intimidating to know that if I sit in that silence, I might hear some thoughts that maybe I haven't completely worked through yet. Are you sure you're good enough for that? Do you think you can handle it? Did you handle that the right way? Are you capable? Do you have the ability? Maybe you shouldn't have said that. Maybe you should do this instead. Those little thoughts that can come to us. And we don't want to hear that. I don't want to question my worth when maybe I need to actually let those thoughts happen so I can say, that's not really me. What is that? Sharon and I have a friend who, even when she's walking outside in the beautiful wilderness or around a gorgeous lake, she does not want to hear her thoughts. And she takes her phone with her and just calls people the whole time she's walking. And the reality is, there are many of us who don't want to have to take that stillness. We don't want that silence. Because that takes aspect number 2. Trusting that the universe has our back. I'm not going to implode or explode. I'm not going to find that I'm unworthy. In fact, it might be the opposite. It might be that Marianne Williamson phrase, you really are beautiful. It's not that you're afraid you're not. You're afraid you are. You're afraid of how incredibly beautiful you are. Step into it and own it, because that's how God made us. Wow. Isn't that amazing? When we can just work through that whole aspect and get to the place of really being who we are. So I know that this wasn't the first time that I did it, and it probably won't be the last, but if I can look at the mindfulness as I have explored the MY of mindfulness, my choice, my choosing, do I want to live frantically or do I want to live calmly? Do I want to have a lot of energy and feel good as I go into a task, knowing I'm going to accomplish it and make great decisions? And even if I don't have better guidance to get through to the end, knowing that as I feel good, I'm improving my health, that I'm connected to source, that I'm filling myself up in every aspect. That's my choice. That's what I get to do. That's amazing. And I'd love for us to be able to do that as a congregation. You know, I was looking through this platform book up here, and I didn't realize that Reverend Clive actually has you as a congregation sometimes meditate up to 6 to 8 minutes on a Sunday. Congregations, I'm going to tell you, this is the first one that I've seen that actually has that as a part of their routine. But collectively, the power of source, think of it just as individual batteries coming together as one. There's the Heart Math Institute that you can log in online. Anybody familiar with that? The Heart Math Institute? And you can actually go in and meditate, and you can see the thousands of people around the world that you're meditating at the same time with. Little pin lights all over the globe. It's so cool. And to know that that heart math is embracing this world. So today, we're going to go into a little bit. I won't hold you for 8 minutes, but we're going to really be in the stillness, to have the intention of simply being, to have the intention of saying, I am here to be open and receptive to spirit, and whatever that looks like. Meditation at this point in time is not about doing anything else. It's not about trying to fulfill or become. It's simply to be open to receive that, and then maybe gauge it throughout the day. What wild, wonderful things will happen as we go through. I'm going to sit down. John's going to tinkle the ivories a little bit as we get ready and calm. And then Sharon is going to stand up and hit this bowl so that we know that's the period of time. Then we're going to go into quiet. The piano will stop, and we'll go into our quiet, our silence, our source. So join me in taking a comfortable seat, getting aligned. Relaxing into